To say hi all, a warm welcome to all of you to this online training. My name is Lars Lagerstedt. I'm a member of the Swedish board. This training is called How to Enhance Your Skills Working with the Body. And the lecturer is Mark Walls, and the program will be held in English. This is a fantastic opportunity to experience together in these Nordic countries and maybe more countries. We will be listening to Mark soon. Before that, some rules. Keep your microphone off. If you want CCE points, be present with your face all the time. Write questions in the chat box. I also want to present Mona Wasserman, who is taking care of the technical things during this event.
Yes,
Hey, Mona.
it's really important that if you want the CCE poäng, you have to change your name so your name is what your name is. So you don't, it isn't said iPhone 1 through 3 because I can't guess then. So if you want your CCE poäng, you have to change your name so you can see your name.
Thank you, Mona. Why this event? In order to achieve the ICF's vision, where coaching is an integrated part of a prosperous society, we must secure our own competence. In today's context, it means that we should be able to appeal to the whole person. We are more than a brain. We have a body that supports us and gives us a lot of information we need. So it's important to understand the embodied intelligence. And tonight, we will understand how to work with pragmatic tools in our coaching practice. So welcome to Mark Walls. Please introduce yourself. How did you come to this place in your life?
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me. The first thing I want to say is please excuse my voice today. I've been told I woke up like this. I feel fine. My voice is just gone. I've been told I sound like a sexy late night radio DJ or a drug addict who's dying of some sort of terminal illness. I'm not sure which, but if you can't understand my English, do feel free to ask. I feel fine. It's just my voice. I've got my honey and lemon tea, and yeah, I'm ready to go. So shall I begin? I'll take a little bit through my sort of story as I begin the training as well.
Yes, please.
All right. So we have slides today. I thought if my voice fails me, we'll make sure we at least got slides. If it all gets too difficult, we have kittens and puppies. And just because most of you are Nordic, I've got some fika as well, which I think is a popular thing. If I remember my time in Sweden when I visited there. There's a quote just to get you thinking. Come back to that. So please have your camera on if you're able to. I'm going to speak for about an hour. We'll do some questions in the middle and some questions afterwards. If at any point you don't understand my English, your English, if you're Swedish or Norwegian, is probably much better than mine. It's certainly better than my Finnish, Swedish, Norwegian. So do feel free. If you don't understand something I say, please ask. If you'd like me to slow down, again, ask. Don't be like super nice Nordic people. Ask before you hate me internally. That's the key. I tend to be quite ADHD and I've got a funny voice today. So I really don't mind saying something a second time. The plan is I'm going to take you through some a little talk, some slides, be pretty interactive, give you an idea of what embodiment is, how it applies to coaching, some practical stuff you can use. Be in choice. If you don't want to do any of the interactive stuff, that's fine. I just ask that you not emailing or on the phone or anything like that. It's nice to see people and have your full attention. So just so I can check you're all understanding me. Give me a wave if that's all clear and I'm, despite this voice, making some kind of sense. Give me a little bit of a wave if it's relatively clear. It's nice to see you all. Hello. Should we take a few breaths together as this is a session on the body? So feet on the floor, bum on your chair. on your reindeer, whatever you're on. Let's take a couple of deep breaths. If there's something from your day, just push that aside. Screaming children, tie them to a radiator, emails, work, just give it a little, like physically do that. Just make space, just make space for an hour and 15 minutes. How are you? Give me a sense. Energy levels, it's kind of midwinter. Everyone in the Northern Hemisphere? Energy levels, kind of high, medium, low, where you're at. Give me a sense. Mine are pretty medium today. December-y kind of vibe. Yeah. Okay. And how's your mood? Who's like super happy? I'm Scandinavian, so you might not know it. Yeah. Who's not having kind of a tough day? So good. Okay, we'll try and make this fun as well. I'm known for a few things. One is kind of fun training. Again, warning of the English. If you don't understand my English, do ask. I even say that with American audiences, so don't be embarrassed. They sometimes don't understand my British slang. I tend to be sort of swear a lot and be offensive, but I'm going to be on my best behavior today, as it seems like the nice Swedish ICF. So I'll try and be on my best behavior. Like if a joke or some swearing does come out, then try not to be offended. It's just my kind of style. Sometimes my style's called flying spaghetti. It won't make total logical sense always. I was just teaching in Germany. This drives them a little bit crazy. Lots of stories, lots of jokes, lots of anecdotes. Quite quick. You won't get all of it today. Obviously, we're not doing like a full coach training in an hour. I'll mention a coach training I do at the end. I don't want to give you an advert though. I'd rather just be useful for an hour. And at the end, I'll say like, hey, if you want to learn more, that's out. We're not doing trauma therapy though. Everything I do is trauma informed. And we'll do some light group coaching if you're up for it, but I'm not going to do demos today. I will show you where you can find some individual demos. So really what I'd like to cover is this. I'm going to let you read. Okay, does that sound good? Nod like enthusiastic puppies if that sounds good. If it doesn't, just go have a bath. Okay, go for a walk, go drink some alcohol long into the dark nights, whatever you need, okay? But that's what's on offer if it's your cup of tea. So I'd really like you to be in learner mode rather than knower mode. What do you think I mean by learner rather than knower mode? I've been training life coaches for quite a few years. It's the main thing I do. And sometimes they're brilliant. They're very open to learning. Other times, did anyone do a corporate job and you come in and someone's been sent by HR and they've got their arms crossed and they're like, impress me. And anyone had this experience? Give me a wave. It's not much fun, is it? It's not much fun. It's not much fun for me as a trainer, but it's also not much fun for them because they waste their time. So this is actually a way of introducing the concept of embodiment. How might you be sitting if you were open, curious, kind of ready for learning? How might you be sitting right now? It's an inquiry, no right answer. Okay, let's have fun. Let's go the opposite way. How might you be sitting if you were that guy? If you were that participant who'd been sent, that's good. Sana, you've got it. You've got it. Leaning back, chin comes up, mouth like a cat's anus. Yeah. Not you particularly, Sana. You know that way. So give yourself a shake, give yourself a wriggle, and then decide how you want to be for the next hour. Your choice. It's your time, right? So I'm gradually introducing what embodiment is. I will define it more rigorously shortly. That didn't make sense yet, don't worry. So a little bit about my life. I come from an Irish family, grew up in rural England, the middle of nowhere. I was cognitively very intelligent as a child. I read all the books in the library, got told I had a 0.01% IQ. That made me completely happy and good at everything in life, right? No, it didn't. The reason was I had the same basic problem that Western civilization has. which is that cognitive knowing isn't enough. Okay, cognitive knowing isn't enough. Because of that, I got into different activities, a lot of martial arts. I was a live-in martial arts student. I did a lot of work with children outdoors, like climbing and abseiling. Ended up working all over the Middle East and Africa in peace building work. That was very formative for me. Eventually decided when I wanted to stop living out of a bag, and decided to get sober. I was alcoholic by that point, and sorted my life out. Started a company. It was like, God, 17, 18 years ago now. Started teaching in business, wrote books on this topic. Mostly have trained coaches, but a lot of business people. Let's see, I did a conference 3 years ago called the Embodiment Conference. 500,000 people attended that. Did anyone come to that by any chance? Give us a wave. Any conference people? Okay, you can still find it online. And last year I started a charity in Ukraine, a trauma education project in Ukraine. So I've got pretty strong links to Ukraine. My wife's Ukrainian. There's a little bit about where I come from. I've worked with all kinds of clients, people even a couple my mum's heard of, which is always good at, family dinner. I'm very interested in culture. I may make comments about the Nordics. Please see it as a sign of love that I'm teasing a little bit sometimes. I love working around the world. I love living around the world, traveling a lot. Culture is a big part of embodiment, so we can talk about that as well if you've got questions. Rather than me do all the hard work, though, let me ask you just straight out, why does the body matter for coaching? Let's see what you come up with, and then I'll piece your probably very intelligent ideas together into something that has coherence, because that's my job. So save my voice in the chat. Why does the body matter to coaching?
Your English is a little bit quick for me. Could you say it again a little bit slower?
Sure. Why does the body matter for coaching?
Why does
Thank you, Caroline, for that. And
Okay.
let me, in case I do that again, this is the slow down gesture. Okay.
Great, thank you.
And I will speak at Estonian speed. Yeah, if anyone, this is the slow down gesture for everyone. That way you don't have to shout. Thank you, Caroline, for reminding me. So why does the body matter for coaching? Everyone put in the chat. We'll gather your ideas together. Deepest intelligence in the body. Beautiful, Mia. The body knows what we need. The body keeps the score. There's a quote from Bessel van der Kolk, Dutch trauma psychologist. We read the whole client. That was a lot, right? Even if you're on doing phone coaching, which I do a lot, you can still hear through the voice. Yeah, something honest about it. Okay, we're going to add to this as we go on, but this is a pretty good start. All right. One more quotes for you. I don't want to get you thinking. I'm going to tell you stuff, but I also want you to think about it. Sometimes people think of learning as just a very cognitive affair, like at school, maybe you were stuck in rows. It's interesting when I ask coaching students to do some coaching, the first thing they do is they take chairs and they sit down, right? I'm like, why? Why not do coaching lying down, standing up, walking, dancing? Yeah. It's kind of an assumption in our culture. Our culture is often very cognitive, kind of like Mr. Spock from Star Trek, if anyone's old enough to remember. One of my colleagues used to say, we treat the body like it was a brain taxi. This is a normal disembodied view, that we're a head on a stick. One of my friends is an academic, and he said, my body just carries me from one lecture to another. And for me, that was profoundly sad. It's the opposite of what I believe. Here's another way of looking at it. Is information enough? So has Wikipedia solved all the world's problems? Yeah, the answer is no. Yeah, like, where's my phone? Everyone got one of these little devil boxes? This has all the information that was available in a Library of Alexandria, all the information in the Encyclopedia Britannica, the complete works of Shakespeare. All the information we could want is right here. Doesn't make people happy. It's like, imagine someone said, I'm a really good driver. I've read a lot of books on it. How would you respond? Or even worse, I'm a really good kisser. I read a lot of books on it. Who would be skeptical of that? I think all of us. We intuitively understand that real learning is embodied learning, that information isn't going to cut it. Anyone got self-help books? Wendy Palmer used to say, one of my teachers, self-help books that you keep on a shelf and they don't help. Information. Anyone got those? Peter's nodding. I think Peter's getting this. It's nice to see a guy here as well, Peter. Another way of looking at this is like, if someone said, do you know France? Well, do you know about France? You know, what's the capital? What's the population? Yeah, GDP. Well, that's very different from learning French, right? It's very different than, who's ever had a romance in Paris and had a coffee first thing in the morning when you've been up all night having a great time? And there's a particular quality of light in Paris, kind of a golden quality. Has anyone been lucky enough to have that Parisian experience? Give me a wave. No one? Okay, a few of you have. When you were young, that's knowing Paris. Understand the difference? Yeah? Having a waiter be rude to you, getting lost in an art gallery. Okay, that's knowing Paris. It's not even more than knowing French. There's a French way of being. I've lived in France for a while. I like France. I learned a lot from France about pleasure and about life. And, you know, those of us who are North European, there's a way of being we can learn. So when I talk about the body embodiment, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, way of being. Okay, now, not to stereotype, of course, there's different kinds of French people, but culture's real. Let's bring this back to you. What are you doing right now? You think sitting, listening, not much. What you're doing is you're being you. You're a verb. Okay, so Peter is petering, Celine is Celining, Mia is mirroring, Charlotte is charlotting. And that's good for something. And here's a really critical part of this. Was/is. Okay? You have developed a way of being, which in your family, your culture, your trauma, whatever, all these layers, that way of being was an adaptation. It was a way that was useful. And it's become a habit. Does that make sense? It's like, everyone cross your arms if you wouldn't mind. If you're willing. Okay, now cross them the other way. So the other arm's on top. Yeah. Feels weird, right? Most people, this will feel really strange, or you can do it with the fingers, with the index finger on top. Yeah. Same thing. For most people, this will feel weird unless you're very ambidextrous, because you've got a habit, you've got a way of being. Now, here's the thing. Right now, you're in a way of being. And it's kind of like, I can't smell myself. It's just there. It's invisible. It's like a comfortable underpants or the taste of your mouth. I can taste my mouth now because it's full of paracetamol from this lens sip. Normally, you can't taste your mouth. It's the same with your being, your embodiment. Who can taste it? Not your mouth, your being. Who can taste your embodiment? Everyone else. Okay, if you're a coach, definitely your coachees. This is what your coachees are booking. This is what they're buying. This is what they're inspired by, depressed by, energized by, relaxed by. Yeah, your embodiment as a coach. So I can teach you like clever coaching tools, but that when I work with training coaches, that's the first thing we do is we reveal a little bit about their own embodiment. Okay. So we looked at this from the point of view of learning, like maybe being curious or being skeptical. That has a direction, doesn't it? You with me? Who tends to be more of an up coach and who tends to be more of a down coach? And I mean literally. So up would be like, hey, maybe like enthusiastic, or it's kind of hard when you're like ill in winter. It could be like, oh my God, like totally California, like this kind of up. Okay. Or it could just be like bouncy up, Tigger, no Tigger. Who tends to be a more down coach? In Sweden, it is more common to be a down, kind of calming, relaxing Swedish person. Is it true? You're famous for this. Not everyone. There are ADHD hyperactive Swedes, I'm sure. But generally the culture is calming. Yeah. Scandinavians make good peacekeepers. There's a calming quality, a down quality. Not to everyone. Depends on the day of the week. Depends on the time of year. Like I'm actually, believe it or not, calmer in winter. In the summer, time of day, how much caffeine I've had. There's factors, right? Which would you say is your general embodiment? Let's point. Who's an up coach? Who tends to be like motivational, let's go, yeah, high energy, upbeat. Okay. Annoying. Okay, who tends to be a down coach? Or like soothing, hey, everything's gonna be fine. Yeah, it's gonna work out. Boring. Okay, so I'm just joking. There's positive and negative, right? You're either caffeine or chamomile tea as a coach. So there's the caffeinated coaches. They're human caffeine. They're energizing, they're inspiring, they're upbeat. Now, everyone's both. Everyone, it depends, okay? So I'll give you a model in a minute for this. You are not all things equally to all people. You have a personality. And remember, from the inside, it will always feel like both. Get some feedback. Yeah, now, if you're a decent coach, you'll have some range. You'll be 2/3 caffeine, 1/3 chamomile tea, or the other way around. Yeah, a good coach is going to have some range. They're going to have some adaptation to the client and the circumstances. Yeah, so it does depend on the client, but it also, Anna, depends on you. And if you think it doesn't, you're kidding yourself. Okay, ask 10 people who know you well, see what they say. Because remember, we can't taste our own mouths. Okay, so I'll give you a model because you guys are pushing back a bit, which is fine because you're actually making a good point. We're always embodied in place, in culture. You know, it depends on your biology, right? Like I'm more fiery when I haven't eaten. As a coach, I'm way more challenging if I haven't eaten or slept. Okay, if I just had a good night's sleep, just got laid, I'm on holiday, coach someone day after my holiday, I'm way more chill. Yeah. So yes, it depends on these other factors. This is all my book, by the way, if you want to kind of feel it. Depends on you, the environment you're in. Coaching in winter is not the same as coaching in summer. As some, you know, I used to teach a lot in Moscow. I can't anymore, unfortunately, because of the Ukraine war. I used to coach a lot in Moscow, and my colleague there, she was like, "Wow, you're intense." And then she came to visit me in Brighton, which is a little seaside town I used to live in England. And she said, "You're so much nicer a coach in Brighton." I was like, "Yeah, I'm by the sea. I'm at home. I'm relaxed. You know, it's a different vibe, right? Different vibe." Yeah. So we are embodied in place and context. But here's the thing, like these trees, we have become shaped. Found this slide today. Do you like it? Does the point make sense? Trees shape themselves around objects. Human beings do the same thing around their lives, around their culture, around their families, around their trauma. So we end up with a physical shaping that's not physical, like, you know, it's not like how tall you are or if you've got a six-pack, right? It's embodied in the sense of your posture, your movement, your patterns of being. It's a little different from a tree in that way. So I get interviewed a lot and people will say, what's embodiment? And there's lots of definitions, right? How we are is the most simple. So we're looking as coaches at the subjective, so not so much fitness or well-being or, you know, something like this. This is fine, but it's different. It's nothing wrong with fitness. It's just a different area. Subjective, the eye of the body. You can also think of embodiment as a sort of umbrella term for a field of study. So, you know, coaching can be influenced by yoga, martial arts, body work. I bring all these different things together. There's actually much more than this, but this is just some basics, just to give you a little bit of background. We can also think of it as a type of intelligence. Its embodiment is a way to be smart that we can work with as coaches. So if we're talking about self-regulation, for example, that's an embodied skill. Yeah, empathy is embodied skill. These are coaching competencies, right? Basic ICF competencies, a lot of them would fit in here. Again, this is all my book if you want to you know, really break it down. So it's just a brief overview today. I want to be clear, I'm not talking about sort of body language like some creepy politician, you know. I don't want to teach you some sort of fake gestures or something like that. It's a bit more than that. And as I said, it's kind of like comfortable shoes or something pinned to your own back. Sometimes we say, what's it like to walk in another person's shoes? What's it like to walk in your own shoes? And again, it's invisible. So we bring this out. It's like the smell of your house. You don't smell it till you come back from holiday. Is this making sense? Nod loudly if this is making sense. Imagine you're Americans being shown a card trick. Get really, you know, sometimes with Northern Europeans, it's hard to know whether things are landing or not. So it's really helpful for me if I can see you respond, like, okay, they're getting it. You kind of know this already, right? Like a dog knows this. A dog knows if the dog is the boss or you're the boss. Does that make sense? The dog immediately knows. One of my students is a dog trainer, and, you know, we work together on this stuff. Children know. I've worked with about 50,000 children. And it's a question, it's a good question, but save it for the end, yeah? Children will pick up on whether you're safe or not, whether you're leading or not, whether you're clear or not, you know, whether you're kind. Some people just have that kind of kind parental energy, don't they? When people say energy, they mean embodiment. Who's got that as a coach? Who's got that kind of kind, kind of, let's give that a go. Kind of imagine you're kind of hugging someone. Give it a try. You'll learn way more if you're trying this stuff, trust me. So imagine you're really embracing someone. You've got that womb-like feeling. Okay, now take the arms down and see if you can keep that quality. I have a bit of this with my students, right? I want them to do well. I'm nurturing. Yeah, part of me is like, come here, let me feed you, let me love you. Now that's a beautiful embodiment for a coach. But what's the but? If you can only do that, you have a problem. Because you won't be able to challenge your coaches, right? Equally, who's very challenging as a coach? Who's like one of those kick-ass coaches, borderline aggressive? Not in Scandinavia. Yeah, when I work with the Israelis, they do this pretty well. The Russians do it pretty well. They've got that energy. Try that. Everyone do that. Give that a go. Give that a go. Just to get the feel. Okay, now stop that with the hand, but keep that energy, keep that vibe. Okay, what do you want to get out of today's session? You've come to me to be coached. What do you want? Do you feel like that's an embodiment? It's very different than, what would you like to get from today's session? How can I help? It's very different, not good or bad, just different. Okay? So we can say the same thing and it can mean 10 different things. Try it, just out loud, say whatever you say at the beginning of your coaching in Swedish or English or Norwegian, whatever. Maybe you say, you know, hey, welcome to the coaching. Maybe you say, what do you want to get from today's session? Just, you can turn your camera off if it's embarrassing. Just try it, try it. Try saying the same thing 2 totally different ways. It's 2 totally different coaches, right? Thank you for all those you're participating. It's really nice to see. It's very different to saying, what do you want to get from today's coaching? That's very different than, hey, what do you want to get from today's coaching? We could do anything, man. It's an entirely different impact. It's an entirely different beginning. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm acting a little bit big here, just so you can see the point, right? It's funny, but it's more in life. It's students often learn better through kind of exaggerating, rather than real life tends to be more subtle. Okay. All right. So we can say, you know, the body is just a big part of a lot of things. Intelligence, leadership, health, intuition, even perception. Anyone been on holiday and the world looks different? People come back from holiday and they're like, everyone's so nice in Spain. Everyone's so nice in Greece. It's like, no, you were nice. Okay, you were on sangria, been laying on the beach all day, you had 10 hours sleep. Of course, everyone looked nice. Perception, the body impacts the perception. Yeah. As coaches, is it our job to impact clients' perception? As coaches. Who thinks yes? Who thinks no? We have to leave them seeing things exactly the same. Yeah. If your client could solve their problems without you, they wouldn't be giving you money. Right? Now, that doesn't mean we can't be humanistic. We can't, the whole point of coaching, I think, is humanistic. If they could just sit at home and do it, they would. Our job is to give them new perspectives, to help guide them to new perspectives. I think we're on the same page there. I think it's pretty classical for coaching. Here's the thing. Where does their perspective come from? We can say their history, their life. Yeah, but all of that is held in place by their embodiment. Okay, let me check my psychic skills. Okay, this is a little psychic experiment. I want you to think where you have your best ideas. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. I'm going to read your minds. Okay, everyone, put your hand up when you've thought of where you have your best ideas. I'll wait till most of the groups come up with somewhere. Can you think where you have your best ideas? Okay, great. Put your hand down. Let me test my psychic skills. Okay. Is it in the shower or the bath, walking in nature, or on the toilet? Put your hand up if it was one of those three places for your best ideas. Okay, so that's most of the group. Not everyone. Not everyone. There's one or two of you who are freaks. There's a few other examples. Sometimes it's like driving back in your car. Brigettas, like, I have my best ideas up the Eiffel Tower. Yeah, we can all have good ideas different places, but generally people have their best ideas when they're relaxing. Okay. Also when they're in their body and moving their body. Think of the shower. Loads of people have good ideas in the shower, right? It's a cliche. Yeah, what is it? Archimedes had his best ideas in the bath, I think he used to say, right? Eureka. Yeah. You're in your body in the bath. You're moving your body in the shower. You're relaxing. So quick after yoga, great. Also good. In your body, moving your body, same principles. I'll add that to my list, Brigitte, for the future, I think, for my psychic. I think that's a good one to add. Yeah. So what do you think you do with your clients? They're stuck. If they weren't stuck, they wouldn't come to you. Yeah. They come to you because they're stuck. Whatever the problem is, they're stuck. What is the first thing we normally do as coaches? We say, sit down in a chair. It's going to make them more stuck. Okay. What if we just got them to stand up and move their bodies? Just like we could do this now just to wake up. Yeah. Stand up, have a stretch, have a move. Literally. Just spend 10 seconds now. Doesn't need to be athletic. Don't need to do kung fu. We could do a whole yoga class. That would be better, right? But most of my clients haven't got an hour for yoga. Just getting your clients to go for a walk. Yeah. Generally, I don't have showers with them. Generally, that's generally not the done thing. Okay. But you can go for a walk. You can say, hey, you know what? John, you've probably been on Zoom all day, right? Stick your headset on. I'll phone you on WhatsApp. We'll do WhatsApp audio. Let's go for a walk. Yeah. I do most of my coaching walking in nature because I want the best ideas too, right? So I'm self-regulated by the walking. Co-regulation, well, that's my job. I've got to co-regulate the client generally, right? And I'm eco-regulated. It's probably a new word for you by being in nature. It's way easier for me to teach embodiment in nature than it is on Zoom with you guys. When we do retreats in Slovenia and Austria, it's way better, way better. Cool. Yeah,
we had a hand up from Nicole.
I'll take questions in a bit if I may, because I'm on a roll, so I'll do questions shortly. So if there's a hand up, we'll just pause it. Yeah. Okay. Very authoritarian for a Nordic, I know, but I will come to the questions, I promise. Okay. So in terms of coaching, why coach with the body? What do you reckon, guys? Why coach with the body? Stick it in chat. I'm telling you, but I also want to draw it out from you, right? This is good coaching. Why coach with the body? Having heard what you've heard me say, there's a few reasons. I've given you 3 or 4, actually. What do you think? Why don't we just ask clever questions the whole time and sit in chairs forever? Here's a few. It's part of who we are. The body's tangible. It's accessible. So if I said, hey, Peter, change your spirit. Peter's like, how? What do you mean? But if I said, hey, Peter, sit differently or breathe with this part of the chest, that's doable. If I said, hey, Peter, stand up, let's go for a walk, we can do that. The other one I find is just works, it's powerful. There's lots of good coaching methods. Everyone's selling something, right? So I don't want to say like embodiment's the only one, but it's a powerful one. And it's often the one my clients are missing. So my clients are often super clever people, smart, executives, smart people, but they're not necessarily very embodied. The other one is, do I want to make something stick? If I want to embed change, I'm going to need a practice. Some kind of practice is nearly always needed for getting something to stick. Or else they just go back to their normal way of thinking. This is kind of what I talked to you through, guys, before. Client wants a different result, so they have to do things differently. But if their embodiment is the same, they're going to keep doing things differently. Do what you've always done, get what you've always got. There's another layer. Be how you've always been, then do how you've always done, then you'll get what you've always got. Okay, so we're going to that fundamental layer of embodiment, of being layer. It sounds complex. Let me give you one tool before I do some questions that's just super, super simple, okay? How do your clients generally turn up to coaching? Like, what's their state? Word for embodiment in Sweden, if anyone knows, do put it in. Something's difficult to translate. In Russian, the word for embodiment is embodiment. Yeah, mostly they turned up stressed, frustrated, busy from a meeting, running. This is exactly like my clients. Rarely does my client turn up and say, Mark, I'm super zen today. I'm in the best possible place. I'm ready for coaching. Yeah. So if I have a 30-minute coaching session, if they turn up stressed, I'm going to make them less stressed, right? Just by co-regulation, just by being nice to them, listening to them, being a decent human being who cares about what they want. Great. But that's going to take 15 minutes. That means for half the coaching, they're in fight or flight. Okay. For half the coaching, their brain doesn't work very well. Let's put it simply. Stressed people are dumb people. There's research on this if you don't believe me. They're just not very smart. They're not coming up with original ideas. They're very conservative as well. They're unlikely to come up with novel ideas to solutions. Yeah. So what do you think I do? Thank you. The Swedish, I learned something today. Yeah. What do you think I do with clients when they turn up? Well, first of all, we do some state management, right? So there's lots of kinds of state management. A quick one we do is called centering. This is available on YouTube. If people forget it today, you don't have to write it down. So let's do a bit of centering together now, just as a practice, if you're up for it. 1 minute centering, feet flat on the floor. Become aware of your body. Balance your posture. Find a physical balance in your body. Left and right, front and back. Relax your mouth, relax your belly. Say, ah. Just as a little bonus, think of someone who makes you smile as well. Oh, that felt better. Anyone feel a bit better for doing that? I did. I'm slightly less relaxed than normal because of my voice today. I'm reasonably relaxed, but a bit less than normal. I enjoyed that, but more than that, I can feel I'd benefit from it. Took 1 minute. Okay. I remember my embodied coach years ago used to just say to me, Mark, take 3 deep breaths. He was American. That's all it was, 3 breaths at the beginning of coaching. Yeah. And it just means you spend the time much more productively rather than go into their story and blah, 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 and they're stressed and everyone's stressed. It doesn't help. So you could do that in the middle of coaching. If you hit something difficult, you could do it at the end before you came up with the conclusions, what are you taking away? But the beginning is almost a no-brainer because people nearly always turn up stressed and not very well. People turn up like that, right? They turn up in that fight flight. So they're just not very bright at that point. They're not their best self, let's say. So that's one of the things I'll do. We're going to do a few more in a minute. Let me just double check the time. Yeah, we're doing good. We're doing good. So maybe someone can pronounce this Swedish word for me for embodiment. Let's learn something. I'm not going to even try and pronounce it, guys. You'll laugh at me. And I want to tell them
Which word would you want to translate?
this embodiment word that someone's put begins with F.
Förkroppsligande.
One more time.
Förkroppsligad.
Great. Notice even the word itself has an embodiment, right? It's like if you're saying a slithering snakes has an embodiment. Yeah. Okay, so there was a question before. Can you do me a favor and type your questions? It's just much more efficient, and it also means the shy people can ask their questions. So if you have questions so far, type. I'll do questions again at the end. I'll do a bit of group coaching in the middle. There's a question I missed from before, then repeat it. I'll happily come to it now. Someone mentioned authenticity, I think, before in a question. So what I'm not trying to get you to do is pretend to be someone else. What I'm trying to get you to do is grow who you are. Does that make sense? There's a difference. So like politicians, do some bullshit body language. It's fake. You can smell it's fake, right? Doesn't feel good. Yeah. Instead, what I do with my clients, I give them embodied practices to grow their range. I give you an example. I'm coaching a Brazilian lady at the moment who has issue with boundaries. She finds that men don't respect her boundaries. She finds that her mother doesn't respect her boundaries at work. People just don't hear her no. Now, people should hear her no. I wish they would. That would be a better world. But it's also what she can take responsibility for is her own embodiment. She's a very kind of open person, which is beautiful. She's a great listener. She's very sweet, but she lacks that no in her body. So I've given her a practice to actually practice doing some push-ups with that feeling of no. We have a no pose you can find on YouTube that I give clients, yeah? Giving her that feeling in the body. If I'm working with her in person, I could push against the hand to find that feeling. As I was working on Zoom, I had her push against the wall to find that feeling. There's a feeling to know. Does that make sense? Like if you were to push against the wall now, even just imagine it, there's an energy to that. There's an embodiment to that. You know? In my experience, by the way, Sweden is the country where the women least need that in the world. Germany and Holland is not far behind. Brazil has a whole different problem. It's a cultural piece there. Usually have a pretty good, strong boundary there, is my experience. And if you're thinking, no, we don't mark that sexism, that's exactly what I mean. It's exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe I need to ask how the client wants to start the meeting. Yeah, I would do the centering first so that the question comes from their best relaxed self and not their stressed self. And what I find is when I ask people in their relaxed self, the question becomes better. What do I mean by better? More ethical, more creative, more generative. It goes from, why is my boss an idiot? We say, okay, John, sounds like you had a tough day. Get on the ground, take a breath. Then the question becomes, how can I communicate more effectively with my boss? It's a different question, right? As coaches, you've got lots of tools for asking better questions, I hope. That's a key competency for coaches. Here's the thing. If the client's state is all messed up, they're going to ask a rubbish question. Yeah, doesn't matter how clever they are cognitively. The other thing we can do is we can use the body to give different possibilities. Yeah. So the first thing I want the client to do is recognize what they're doing already. So we talk a lot about awareness and choice in the coaching school I run. Actually, let's just do this. It's where you'll learn way more doing it than me just telling you. That's a good rule, right? People learn through doing, not being told. So think of a problem in your life, nothing traumatic, nothing hardcore, am not going to ask you what it is. So this is totally private. It can be an embarrassing rash. It doesn't matter. You're the only one who has to think about it. So if you have a perfect life, you can't do this exercise. Can everyone think of one challenge in their life that's not traumatic? Can you give me a wave if you've thought of one? It'd be about marketing, health, family, whatever. Great. Okay. Say 1 or 2 words out loud about that challenge. Just yourself in Swedish. I'm not going to ask what it is. Just a sentence or 2 about that. Okay, pause. Notice what you're doing with your body as you do that. Here's what I want you to do now. I want you to exaggerate that. So if you're saying, why is my boss an idiot? Really exaggerate it. If you're saying, oh my God, why is my boss an idiot? Exaggerate it. You know? So do the same thing again, but make it bigger. Make the pattern that you're doing unconsciously conscious by making it bigger. Go for it. Have fun with it. Just have fun. Doesn't need to be too serious. And it even bigger till it gets silly. You guys are fun to look at. You are being recorded. Okay, so in the chat, what's one word that would describe the embodiment? So don't tell me about the problem. If you've got a chlamydia problem or something, I don't want to know. Okay, but just one word, like what's the embodiment? Is it open, closed, stressed, happy, whatever? One word about the embodiment. Tired and small, right? So I don't know what Eva wants coaching on. I could coach her now, right? But I bet you small and tired isn't helpful. I bet you money that's not helpful. You know, it's very rare that you go, you know what would have really helped that problem if I was smaller or more tired. Sad. Now, sad may be useful, right? We might have to sit with the grief. We don't always want to change states. Sometimes, you know, I was with a client a few days ago on the phone, and they were telling me about their marriage breakup. And I could really empathize. I'm going through a marriage breakup myself, and it's pretty tough. And as a coach, the first thing I did is I just checked in with myself, because I was like, wow, this is going to be triggering for me because I'm in a similar situation. I checked in. I wasn't going to be biased, you know. And then I heard them talk about it. And I just said, hey, John, that's not their name, but I said, hey, John, this is really sad for you, right? And they just broke down in tears. And they just needed to acknowledge it was really sad before we went to coaching strategies about their divorce. You know? So this isn't always about change. Sometimes it's just about acknowledging the state they're in. Sometimes it's like, what's the message of the sadness? What does the sadness want to tell you? That you've lost a lot, even if you argued with your husband and you hated each other at the end. The sadness is telling you you've lost a lot. And maybe that's going to be useful to acknowledge that before you start arguing about the house, that actually you really appreciated each other. Does that make sense? Like there's a beauty in sadness, there's a sweetness in sadness. And to not acknowledge that and just go straight to strategies would be really missing something as a coach. Yeah. Discouraged. Again, does that mean, okay, this is my coach's embodiment? Do I want to encourage them? Or do I want to acknowledge that? With embodiment, we can always go into it or away from it. We've got a choice. Yeah. Either way is fine. But they're both options. But first, we have to be mindful. Stressed. Again, very few people solve problems well from a stressed position. Okay. So let me do the second part of this coaching. There's one more part to come. What embodiment, and you don't need, I could tell you it, I could fine tune it with Alexander technique and Feldenkrais and all these different complex methods. But I bet you know for yourself what embodiment would be helpful to address this challenge. Show me, don't tell me. So maybe from frustrated to curious, maybe from discouraged to hopeful, maybe from stressed to slightly more relaxed. So in your body right now, this is the Nike technique. Just do it. Okay, just do it. What would be the embodiment that may create more solutions, more kindness, more intelligence? If you're not sure, that's probably why you need a coach. But a lot of people can do this themselves. Does that make sense? And you could do a gesture, you could do a micro movement. You know, if you said self-care, I could give you a pose for that, because some people don't know what self-care feels like, and I have to show them. If you said generosity, I could give you a pose for that, right? Like nowhere in the world, in any culture, does generosity look like this. Meh, my precious. Okay. You could go to Baghdad, you could go to Tokyo, and you could do this, and they'd say generosity. Yeah. So there are some cultural things, you know, things can mean like this means hello in Arabic, not stop, right? There are some cultural things, but generosity is this is the way art works. You can see a statue from Japan or from the Renaissance Italy, and you'll go, oh, it impacts you because the embodiment's there. Advertisers know this too, actually, as well. They're the other group of people who know this, yeah. Coca-Cola. Yeah, it's not Coca-Cola. Yeah. The artists are a bit purer in their intent. Cool. How was that? How was that process? So it's a very simple process, awareness and choice, right? I said, become aware of your embodiment. Yeah, I mean, I could fine tune that for you. If you were working with a client that didn't have much body awareness, I might need to give feedback, right? I might need to show them themselves. Here's one of my clients, right? Comes in, Mark, why are my employees all scared of me? What's the problem? What's the matter with them? I was like, well, John, can I show you how you just asked me that question? And we had enough trust, right? I knew him a bit already, you know. And I said, look, this is how you ask this question. He's like, bloody hell, Mark, that's a bit intimidating. I'm like, yes. You know, I had to hold up a mirror. Because some people are like, I'm not angry, you know, or who's got little kids? Little kids are rubbish at embodiment, right? This is little kids, right? I'm not tired. Anyone heard that from little kids? Yeah. They're not lying. They just don't, they're just not aware. Kids are great at emotional expression. Okay, we beat that out of them. Okay, but they're not very good at emotional awareness. They'll tell you they're tired when they're not tired, when they clearly are tired, when they're literally falling asleep. Yeah. Yeah. Kids are great feedback for embodiment, but some skills they have, kids, others not so much. Okay, so I just want to take you through a little bit about what we're doing here. So bringing awareness to clients, what's the perception they have of the world, right? Our embodiment impacts our thinking, our perception, and therefore our actions. And then adding new choices. Sometimes by going through options, we might go through 4 elements and brainstorm 4 different sets of ideas. Yeah, with the client, we go through 4 different embodiments and give 4 different ideas. And they go, wow, that's more ideas than I normally do. Normally, one of the ideas they had already, because one embodiment was familiar. 2 or 3, they're like, wow, that's totally fresh. I never would have thought of that. Yeah, because they're stuck in their normal patterns. Yeah. Centering is really helpful. You can take that away. It's not copyrighted to do a bit of centering. Just YouTube search ABC centering. Super helpful thing with clients. You know, we do embodiment exercises with, my God, I was young and skinny. That was a long time ago. Sorry, I'm just shocked by how much I've aged. Anyone else have that when they look at pictures? So we do movement exercises, connection exercises, you know, sometimes in person with touch, looking at boundaries, some of the other things we do. As I said, though, you can keep it simple. You can do a bit of movement, bit of shaking, bit of stretching. With you guys, I just did awareness and choice, right? Pretty straightforward technique. This is like centering and awareness and choice, like lessons 1 and 2, all my trainings. Yeah. I haven't had time for demos today. I want to leave time for questions. Loads of demos on YouTube. Okay. So I'll put that in the chat, I think, because that way, if you actually want to see this with real people, you can do that. Instagram, I have like little short demos and stuff as well if people are interested in like actually sort of seeing embodied coaching. Today, I made the decision to just do a bit more tell and a bit more like group stuff. In terms of other resources, main website, embodimentunlimited.com, loads of free stuff there for coaches, different resources for coaches. We have a certification. The early bird on that actually ends tomorrow. We timed a bunch of these talks to end with that. Yeah, that's just, it doesn't start till February though. If you need more time, if you can afford it, you can wait till February. And that's our flagship certification in embodiment coaching. You want to learn how to do this. If you don't have the money, you could buy the book. The book's got a lot of information in, much cheaper than the coach certification, obviously. And if you don't spend any money, you could listen to the podcast. Lots of stuff on the podcast. Free resources, as I said. So YouTube and the podcast are free. The book's cheap. Coach certification is not that expensive, actually, for what it is. But it's obviously it's some money. And I always get asked this. No, you can't have the slides. Sorry, bad luck. Okay, so Good. I think that leaves us plenty of time for questions. My voice is running out of steam. Thank you for your patience with my voice as well. When someone has a sore throat, their embodiment becomes a bit more aggressive because you're going to have to push the air out. So hopefully it hasn't been too abrasive listening to me speed English. So I appreciate the fact that people have been really joining in as well. Makes this much easier. Good. So we should have plenty of time left for Q&A. Either type them or we'll put a hand up. Oh, I can see a hand raised. Yeah, Nicolene. Oh, and I'll stick the coaching link in the chat as well if people want that. Hello.
Yeah, I wonder, have you ever met a client where it didn't work with their body and body language? They couldn't sort of meet you in it. Have you ever been into that?
Yeah, I mean, nothing works for everyone all the time, right? It's why we need different tools. What I would say is everyone has a body. Sometimes you have to make it more obvious and less subtle. Like, for example, I've had clients, I'm like, how do you feel? And they're like, fine. And maybe their beginning emotional intelligence is just okay, not okay. Yeah. So you can make it simple for them, or you can make the postures more obvious to them. So I think as long as you approach it in language that isn't esoteric, I deliberately teach people not to use hippie language, like too new age language, because that's a real turnoff for people. If you go to sort of yogic, a lot of corporate clients immediately are like, I'm not doing this. A lot of it comes down to trust, but if you put it in common sense language, almost everyone gets it, I think. And if clients are numb, that itself is interesting. That might mean they have a trauma background, for example. Yeah. So that just becomes part of the conversation if they're very not picking up on body signal.
Okay, I think Charlotte Elegant is next one with the question.
Hello, thank you for talking to us. I have two questions. One, because I got curious while you were talking, what is considered hippie language? Could you give me some examples?
Yeah, sure. I mean, with my students, we do an exercise on this that's really fun. It's called killing unicorns. So a unicorn is every word that you're usually we find someone who's like, the husband or wife of someone who's like a business person, and they have to raise their hand every time we use a hippie word. So things like chakra, energy, if you don't use it carefully. Sometimes even the word embodiment itself is too hippie, right? We just talk about mindfulness or something. That's mindfulness has made my life a lot easier. 20 years ago, before the mindfulness revolution, my life was a lot harder. Now I can talk about mindfulness and people kind of understand that. I can talk about the evidence base. I've got slides on that. I didn't present today, actually. Yeah, it's also how you speak. So what's really important when giving instructions is you give what's called operational language. So what this means is language of the method, not a metaphor or an outcome. So I'll give an example. By the way, I'm about to ruin 90% of yoga classes for you, so I apologize, including in Sweden where I've done a bunch, and there's some serious hippie yoga classes in Stockholm. This is definitely not immune to this. So if I were to say to you, empty your mind, what's the missing word? What's the question? How? Right? But if I were to say to you, bring your attention to the tip of your nose and notice your breathing, that's operational. That's concrete. Okay? So if I were to say, extend your energy to the four corners of the universe, one of my Californian teachers told me that once. I was taught by Californian hippies, baby boomer hippies in America. And I had to really change a lot when I went to England, when I came back home. I had to change a lot when I worked in Russia and Israel, for sure. Yeah. So, like telling someone a metaphor, extend your energy, or an image. I mean, imagery can be okay to work with, but you need a concrete method. I actually wrote a whole ebook called Working in Business, a Guide for Hippies, where I kind of talk about all these things. It's also about your own embodiment. So imagine if I sit down with a corporate client and I'm like, okay, hi, my name is Shakti Rainbow Pants, and I'm your embodiment coach today. I've just come back from Bali. Well, what do you think they're going to be thinking? You know, that's what they're going to be thinking. So your own embodiment is as key as what you say. So I could say a lot more, but Charlotte, does that give you a few insights?
Yeah, it does. And then my next question was more sort of an observation, but I guess maybe it's a built-in question. And that is that when clients come to you, they come because you work with embodiment. But for somebody like me who doesn't have that in sort of the coaching title, whatever, I've found that people can be quite sensitive and defensive if one brings up body language, posture, hippie word, energy too soon or at all. And I don't really know what my question is. Is there some way that you can recommend in how we approach them, since we don't go under the flag or umbrella of embodiment coaches?
Yeah, most of my clients are other coaches, but I always keep some mainstream clients just to keep me grounded.
Okay.
And they don't come for me for embodiment. They come for me for boundaries, for confidence, for leadership, for charisma, for stress. You know, they're the main things. Self-care. You know, they come with a problem, and I then explain like, hey, confidence isn't just something you can read a book on, right? You actually have to stand a certain way, move a certain way. Or I'll say, think of a leader you admire who has confidence, and they'll tell me about their embodiment, right? And then we'll use their words and phrases. Yeah. They'll say, oh, he's just got it. He's got that oomph. I'm like, okay, would you like to? I can teach you that. Yeah, we need to practice that. Practice is a good way in. People understand practice. People understand that you become what you practice. Culture's another way in. You know, we'll talk. I was just in Germany teaching, and we're making lots of jokes about Germans being uptight and Germans not liking uncertainty. And it's just playful. And then we go through that and go, okay, should we try something different? We don't even have to use the word embodiment.
Okay.
Pleasure. Nice
Thank
to meet
you.
Suku?
Mark, we were speaking about the body language. I think you raised the question to us in the beginning, but my question is more based on your experience and your profession. The body language, how much portion would that be of your total communication as you communicate with your client or with your surrounding? What would be the percentage if you would compare what you say with your mouth and what you say with your body?
Okay, let's do an experiment. Everyone look this way. Okay, everyone touch your knees. Touch your knees. Go. Touch your knees. Everyone touch your knees. Okay, most people touch their elbows, right? I said knees. Okay, so I think that proves the point. A couple of you are sharp. You're like, I'm not falling for it. And by the way, you guys, way more of you touch your knees than a normal audience. Normally it's 90% touch their elbows. Okay. So it's, well, think of children. Children don't do what you say, do they? They do what you do. Yeah. So there's just a couple of anecdotal examples. So there's the Mehebrian research, but it's dodgy, I would say. It's not such good research. You can critique it on communication. Body language is actually a different paradigm than embodiment. So body language says we express how we are. Embodiment says we create how we are. Okay, so the link goes both ways. Body language, the link's going one way. Embodiment, the link's going both ways. I should have a slide for this. Okay, so it's a whole different way of thinking about it than body language. As for percent, I don't want to get into percent. All I would say is, you know, my experience, it's how I say it, not what I say. Like, here's another example. My best friend can tell me the most offensive things, and all I feel is love. I don't know if Swedish guys are like this, but British guys are really like this. They'll just say the most awful, get you fired in a moment things to my face, right? But the embodiment is I love you, I miss you. So again, this for me shows the embodiment's probably more important. Nice question, thank you. And is it Ezra?
Hello. I mean cognitive thinking. I'm just thinking about how we can combine both because we need cognitive thinking, you know, to plan or travel, for example, traveling or book flights, you know, we need that in some way. We can't live without cognitive thinking, but how can we combine cognitive thinking and the mindfulness state in a way that the narrative is not dominating? You know, we created the narrative and we believe in that and live after that and a little bit lose the body contact, right? And that's why embodiment helps us to get back to ourselves. How can we create the balance? Actually, that's my question.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of thinking that people do, they don't need to do it. It's simply like a sort of brain fart. You know, it's default mode network, just judging and planning. And the vast majority of that kind of thinking is just super not helpful. Hence mindfulness being a practice, because it means we can come back to the present moment, reduce the amount of stress we're creating for ourselves. You know, as the Stoics who first kind of came up with that in the West, right? This is an old idea in Buddhism and Stoicism. The other one I would say is the type of thinking we are doing comes from our embodiment. Yeah. So if we want to influence the type of thinking we're default making, impacting our embodiment is a more direct way to do that, because you can't say to someone, think differently. It doesn't work. You can't, it doesn't do anything, right? You can't control your thought. Your thought is a byproduct. Yeah. Unless you're chanting a mantra or something, right? It's very difficult to control thinking, but you can change your posture. You can go for a walk. You can stand up. So that's, for me, that's the link between the two. And pretty much everything I taught today was how to shift the body so that you can move the thinking in a more helpful direction. Like, I want my clients thinking. I don't want them zenned out. I want them having good ideas. Okay. But I find if I shift the body, they're going to have more better ideas than if they just stay in their habitual mode. Good. Great question. Peter, yours is also a really good question. You've how to grow your embodiment, right? So first thing I'd say is having any kind of body awareness practice is going to be helpful. Being around other embodiment people is also helpful because it catches. Yeah. And being in nature as much as possible is helpful. That is going to increase all these skill sets. There's 8 skill sets here, 8 chapters in my book. On the coaching training, you know, we break this down over weeks, obviously, right? So we'll spend time on the coach training building your self-awareness. So little things we'll do, we'll have an alarm that goes off 5 times a day, and every time the alarm goes off, you're like, how am I? Yeah. So we layer in these practices because you can't start doing them all at once. And then later on, once that's established, we layer in a centering practice so the coach can get better self-regulation. A lot of the benefit you'll get from embodiment, it's not just tools for the client, it's for yourself. Yeah, like there's a bunch of stuff I did before coming to teach today that I think helped. Yeah. And then of course we have like empathic listening exercises involving the body. And then how do we have exercises and practices around influencing, because you are influencing your coachee. There's a sort of fundamentalist humanist idea that you're not in any way influencing your coachee. It's total nonsense. You are, just by being in the room with them, you are. Your tone of voices. So we might as well be influencing them in ways that are like, you know, I talk about coffee and chamomile tea. These are all things we can practice. So on our courses, any coaching students, before we unleash you on the public, we give you a lot of practices, and it takes a few hours a week. Like, I'm not going to bullshit people. Like I said, if you want to study with me, it's not just an hour reading a book a week. You've got to do some practices. You know, we have people practicing regularly, and we do that in a very efficient way. There's a German woman in charge of the course who makes it very efficient and makes sure everyone's doing the homework. And little things like little and often can help. Get a meditation practice would be another tip. Have a regular meditation practice, a regular movement practice, and regular time in nature. They'd be my top tips. But I'd say most coaches are pretty in their heads. So just having like any kind of dance or yoga practice or even like conscious walking practice is going to be helpful. So could break it down. And when I'm working with advanced embodiment coaches, we'll look at what they're missing, what they need to develop, where they're strong, where they're not strong. But for most beginner embodiment people who are already coaches, I'm just like, get a yoga practice, get a dance practice, just do it like, you know, Charlotte has, just do anything. Because that's gonna bleed into your coaching in really positive ways. The intermediate level people, so who already has an embodied practice here, give me a wave. Who has some kind of, oh great, fantastic, that's better than most coaching groups, good stuff. Make sure it's a conscious practice and not just like you know, exercise is great, but it's not a conscious practice, right? And you're not bringing mindfulness to it necessarily, right? You can be on the treadmill watching TV, can't you? That's not an embodied practice, yeah? Exercise is great, but it's not embodied, yeah? So that's the first thing. The second thing is if you've already got one practice, you might want to look at what it's built and what it's missing. Actually, just throw in the chat your practices. Throw in the chat, I'll give you some examples. So this, when I'm working with intermediate students, like a lot of people come to me, they're already yoga teachers or 5 rhythms teachers or salsa teachers, you know. I tend to have students who are coaches and students who are movement teachers. If you're both, come and be my student, for God's sake. Yeah, but often it's one side or the other. Yeah, mindfulness is a good base. So for mindfulness, you could add a movement practice because there's things you'll learn from mindfulness and things you won't. Like improv comedy will teach you things that mindfulness, just solo sitting mindfulness won't, and vice versa. Yeah, like you could do martial arts and get really good at self-regulation and be really rubbish at self-expression. We call them martial arts robots. Or you could do loads of conscious dance and jumping around and going crazy, and what you actually need is to get your shit together a little bit. What you actually need is a martial arts practice to become a bit more better self-regulated. Does that make sense? Most coaches are on that expression, on that spectrum between either being a control freak or being a freak out. Which are you? Who's a little bit controlled? Who's a little bit tight? Tends to be more popular in Northern Europe. And who's a little bit all over the place? Bit chaotic, expressive. You guys have fun parties. Okay, so here's the thing. You've probably chosen the wrong practices. Because all the uptight people choose Iyengar yoga and they should choose conscious dance. Okay, and all the freak out people choose conscious dance and they should choose Iyengar yoga. You with me? So this is the kind of coaching I do when I'm working with students who are, you know, a bit more sophisticated. And you know, it also depends like what's available. What do you enjoy? What does your husband do? Right? We got to look at it through a few lenses. Convenience is a really big factor. If there's a keto dojo next to your house, that's great. Better go there than the, you know, perfect yoga studio 20 miles away. Yeah. I mean, Sweden's lucky if you're in Sweden. There's Stockholm, for example, lots of good Aikido and yoga and dance. Really lots of cool stuff there. You have Angsbacka Festival with all sorts of things. Lots of cool stuff. Wow. Good. I hope I've got to all the questions. Are we almost on time, right?
I want to stress one thing. There was a question about what type of body thing can you do that is accepted easy. And you talked about centering, a centering process where you find your attention in the middle of your body somewhere, in the stomach, for instance. And I often use that, and I recognize that people accept it very easily. That's not so harming and so. Another question, more maybe to the participants. Mark told us about exaggerating a feeling through a body language, through body expression. And that's a very powerful tool, in fact. And I hope many of you will try to use it. So ask Mark if you have any question about that, so you don't just heard this method and not dare to use it. So come up with questions about that, how to continue with it when you have done this, what you next, anything, so you feel safe about using it.
Yeah, in terms of the sort of simple usable things, it's most of the things that I've shown you today, really. So the centering is definitely a quick win. Basic awareness tools. So that, for example, is like exaggerating stuff we looked at. asking people what embodiment they're already in. And if you put that in the right language, that's fine. You wouldn't necessarily use the word embodiment. Yeah. Feeding back to people, showing people stuff, your own embodiment and practice we've talked about as a coach, that's super important and simple. Getting people moving, and then taking people through different embodiments as a way of brainstorming. Call it body storming. Yeah. So how does this, you know, like, let's do 4 elements, right? Like, I ask you a question: how is it here? How is it here? How is it here? How is it here? You'll get 4 answers. Yeah. Obviously, there's other skills like being able to read different embodiments as a coach is pretty important. Yeah, coactive do use some embodiment, but it tends to be the sort of basic stuff. I get a lot of good students from there, actually. It's a school I like a lot. They do some good stuff, and usually we just go a lot deeper into it.
Carina Fogelström, you write something here. Maybe you can, maybe you say something about it, because it could lead us to a question for me.
Yeah, you were talking about using it as a tool, exaggerating your expression or your problem, if you could say so. And when I did so, I felt how silly I was feeling, like that was some kind of a problem, and that made me some kind of relieved, that I knew that I am the key, and that's why I felt like having a more assured posture would benefit me more than going on thinking of this problem that I can't manage. And well, maybe we have got clients that can have the same feeling that I have or had.
Any comment, Mark?
Yeah, it's very British, but I love to get clients to laugh at themselves. I mean, we all take ourselves very seriously, don't we? And the thing is with people's patterns is your pattern wants you to believe it and take itself seriously. And by taking it to an extreme, by exaggerating it a little bit, hopefully without shaming someone, right? We have to be careful if someone's in a shame pattern. We can laugh at it and just see that it's ridiculous. You know, like, it's really silly. We have these patterns that are solidifications from our childhood, from our culture. Peter's asked about culture in there as well. You know, obviously the mirroring depends on the level of trust, the level of they can see there's some respect there. And some cultures handle that better than others, I've noticed as well. Some cultures, you know what they're good at and they laugh at what they're bad at. Other cultures are real sensitive, particularly to foreigners pointing it out. So there's some good things to know about in the culture. For example, when I used to teach in Russia, I'd always get asked, you know, please tell us about Russian embodiment. And I would say, no, thank you. But here's my colleague Vilya and my colleague Alexandra would do that part, because it was just too dangerous. Otherwise, people would get very upset. So, and a lot of it's trauma there, for example. So same in Ukraine. So you've got to be careful with that one. And sometimes the Anglo-Irish sense of humor doesn't go down well. I'd say if you do come and train with us, then, you know, be aware there will be jokes. That's kind of how we roll. I also have a co-trainer who's German and another one who's American and lives in Italy. And that really helps, is training with other people who are from different cultures and different genders as well. So you kind of cover some of that bias between you a little bit better. Yeah, I think we're on time and I want to respect people's time. So yeah, it'd be nice to see you guys again. As I said, if you want to find out about what we do, there's the place to go. And I just want to say tack. That's my Swedish. So thank you for hosting me. It's been a really nice, engaged group, and I've enjoyed it. So thank you for the Swedish ICF as well for organizing this. It's appreciated.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Oh, hang on,
sharing with us.
Mandatory thank you slide. There we go.
Okay.
Cheers, everyone.
So thank you for sharing your experiences and your knowledge. And is there any more question? We can add it. I think, is it a hand from Carina? No, it wasn't. Okay, it's a thank you. You can write something about thoughts about this, so we know. And this was a Nordic cooperation, so to say. I hope it will be more. And so if you have, there are some people from other countries here right now. If you have something that you want to share with us, our other countries, let us know, let us cooperate. And for the Swedish sake, we have 2 things like this in a month. And we have not so much on the program yet because the dates are not set, but you can find in our site what we have. And some will be in English and some will be in Swedish. So thank you very much.